Mike Winnet is today's guest on the podcast, and he successfully sold his business for over £8 million and then used £500,000 of his own money on get-rich-quick schemes to prove if any of them worked. He's invested in cryptocurrency, mining, property courses, and he bears all on his YouTube channel. YouTube has told him he's been one of the fastest people to get to 50,000 subscribers. He's in the top 10% on the YouTube channel. Tune in. This is not to be missed. Here we are, Mike Winnet.
I describe myself as a professional get-rich-quick ad clicker. So when you see these adverts on your social media, YouTube videos of 23-year-old lads promising you riches, if you take cocaine and you're paying for everything on a credit card and it's all for the Instagram, then honestly, your chances of committing suicide are massively increased. That I think is, if you don't celebrate the highs and don't rub it in people's faces and that, then you can be more open about the lows. Well, I can run my own business. There's a big difference between sat on the phones that someone else has paid for in an office that someone else is paying the rent for, bringing a database that someone else has built off the back of someone else's marketing. I broke down step by step the language, the sob stories they use, the order that they do their pitching, so people can understand and be better informed when they go to these events.
So, Mike, thanks for coming on the podcast today. Just for my viewers, listeners who don't know who you are, can you just do a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
I'm Mike Winnet, and I describe myself as a professional get-rich-quick ad clicker. So when you see these adverts on your social media, YouTube videos of 23-year-old lads promising you riches in 48 hours if you just do their Forex course or dropshipping course, I click those adverts, I invest my money into the course, follow their instructions, and then reveal my results on YouTube and LinkedIn.
So where did this idea come from to do that? Because we've all seen the ads. Inundated on, and especially if you've ever clicked one of the ads, you just get to see the whole world exposes you to a load more. Where did all of this come from in terms of doing that, and then you doing the YouTube channel after that?
I suppose I was, lucky enough. I had my own business. Me and some of my friends, we grew that business over 2.5 years, sold that business, and we were quite lucky with the workout that we got. So it was sold for a few million quid. And then we didn't have to do a workout. So I was left sort of twiddling my thumbs with a big lump sum of money, and not being from a wealthy background like most working class kids. I went to seek out experts in these fields. And I knew like traditional stuff, like I need to know about stocks and shares, investing, property, things that you kind of know long-term work. You know, there's proven strategies are out there. But I was interested in, because I kept looking for this type of stuff about investing and that type of thing, like many of you will, then you start seeing adverts for how to get rich quick or one secret trick for wealth and all these things. So I just thought, is any of this stuff real? I didn't think it was. I thought it was scammy, but I thought people will fail for one or two reasons. Either it's bullshit and it doesn't work, or people are idiots. And to be honest, the answer is it's kind of a combination of both those things. Like, a lot of people are idiots, won't work hard, or won't graft, even if the course did work and it laid it out exactly what you needed to do. And equally, a lot of the courses overpromise and under-deliver. So I wanted to find an unbiased review, and I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet. I couldn't find it anywhere on YouTube either. It was someone telling you it was amazing and trying to sell you it themselves, like, cult-like members of MLM and that type of stuff. Or it was people that were like, this is a scam, this is absolute bollocks. And I just think, well, you could have just been lazy or stupid, or both. So I thought, why don't I make that content and then just reveal my actual real results? So I just ring-fence £500,000 to throw into some of the big hitters that you see all the time, whether it be dropshipping, Amazon, FBA, whether it be affiliate marketing, some property stuff, get rich quick, like the no money down type stuff. Anything that's sort of out there at the moment, Forex trading, cryptocurrency, crypto mining, that you get an advert for that promises you riches, I thought I would try it. But it was basically having money, being bored, and part of my buyout was I wasn't allowed to compete with my old business. So I was wearing golden handcuffs for 2 years, so I just thought I might as well just do this.
Did you ever believe that this was you were going to make some money back, or were you prepared to just lose it all in terms of the 500k?
Honest answer to that is probably a combination of both. I thought, I'm not going to make £1 million in all these 6 different things that I originally wanted to try. If I did, great, I'd make £6 million in 12 months. I can live with that. I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, it would make good content and stop other people falling for it. That was kind of the mindset that I went into this with. However, I did believe that while I might not make £100,000 from dropshipping, I might make £10,000 or £5,000, and I could live with that. As long as it covered my investment, the time, and all that type of stuff, I could live with it. But I mean, spoiler alert: none of them have got anywhere near the riches promised. And I'm not someone that doesn't know anything about business. I'm someone that's started a business, scaled a business, employed staff, and sold a business. And it makes me wonder if I can't do it. And I'm not saying I'm the benchmark of success. If I can't do it, and I've not got the extra learning curve of understanding about running a business, how's someone that's never heard of dropshipping before, never run their own business, never been self-employed, never been motivated enough, and dealt with staff and supply chain and wholesalers and all those types of things that I've experienced myself, what hope have you got without knowing anything about that stuff or dropshipping? Yeah. It's kind of like you've got too many learning curves there to be successful. So my advice, anyone that's thinking about any of these things, 100% do not do it. And I'm telling you that from someone that's just committed 2 years and 500 grand in finding it out.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's no better advert for that right there. In terms of, you can get sucked in, because I'll tell you a little bit of a story about me and my business partner. So we've got a number of different businesses, and we invest in property. So all we do is very boring 3-bed houses in the northeast, single lets. We let them out to families. We buy them, we do them up a little bit, try and get a little bit below market value. Everyone wants a deal. And then we invest the profits from one of our businesses into this business to buy the property and go on. So, and then we, as you do, when you're searching around and you see, property conference, I might learn some things about property I didn't know, about buying a house and doing it up. So click. And then I thought to myself, let's go for it. Let's go down this experience and see what it was. So we started this property conference, and I won't mention any names, and here's me naively thinking I'm going to learn something about property, because that's what the property conference was titled. And I got nothing in 2 days but sell. And me and my business partner, I mean, it was 2 days in London, on the train down there. It's a 2 days away from the wife and the kids. It's a bit of a jolly. But by the end of day one, we were like, should we come back to it? Like laughing at the things, laughing at the person at the front of the room, running to the back of the room to go and sign up, thinking, if he's real, he needs his head looking at here. And it was all about social media, no money down. I'm like, just teach me something about property. And we did. Go on. They don't, do they? And that's one of the things that they do. It's you've noticed that because you have got a little bit of an understanding and some basic understanding about property. But what they are preying on, and with their marketing and stuff like that, especially no money down is probably the worst marketing, I think, in property at the moment, because you are now deliberately targeting somebody with no money. So you are deliberately targeting, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but like, you're targeting the wrong person. Really. And I get, like, if you just targeted someone that is in a position that's done a little bit of research and a little bit of thing, and you sort of targeted fewer people that were in a better starting position, it's easier to make a good person great than it is to make someone with absolutely no money and no skills and no experience in a business succeed. And that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, there's so many failure rates, right? I'd be interested to know who that person was. Why would you not say their name? I just warn you, will know them. You will. I'll tell you after. Well, funny enough, I'll tell you that everyone who went in got a ticket that day for a raffle for a one-to-one call with one of the speakers, and some of the speakers were very good, and I was very interested. So anyway, the raffle gets announced, and I won the raffle. So I thought, brilliant. I know which speaker I'm going to choose, because there was one speaker that day who'd just done a lot of good business. He wasn't on the speaker list I could win. It was one of the person pitching a sale, not the keynote speaker. So chose one of them. The guy rings us up and he says, tell me a little bit about yourself. Told me all about my businesses, what I do, how much cash that we inject into property, my long-term plan. And, by next 10 years, by them 45, I want to be, free really in terms of for the property side. And his response was, don't tell anyone I told you this, but keep doing what you're doing. If you were working in a job in a factory and you hated it, I'd be selling you one of my courses right now. But where you are in your strategy, he says, with the money I make from training, I put it into single let property. That's what he did.
Yeah.
This is your strategy. He went, just keep doing what you're doing. My mind was just blown, and I thought, imagine if I was that person working in a factory who hated the 9-to-5 job. I'd have been captivated then on that call to... And I'm happy he told me that, actually, because I thought he could have easily sold me some other strategies as a businessman. I could have bought into them, but he didn't. He was honest, and I thought...
And that sums up one of the things I often say. They are deliberately targeting the lowest common, the lowest... you might have to edit this bit out, but you're too smart for them to scam. That's basically what he's saying. You're in a position where, but realistically now, he could have made you a success story, a genuine success story, by just really giving you some mentoring, some inside tips. But they don't want that because you'll ask too many questions and you won't blindly follow. That's one of the things. Property, and for anyone that doesn't know, one of my biggest videos that I did was called the Entrepreneur Formula. That's what most people have seen of mine, where I broke down the language, the script and tactics they use at these events, including that person that you said, everyone got a raffle ticket. Well, a lot of people get given raffle tickets at these events if they leave a 5-star review for the speaper, even though they've never actually done the speaker's course. And a lot of the people that get up and run to the back of the room are fake. They're plants. They're actual people that work for the company, run to the back to get the whole crowd excited. I broke down step by step the language, the sob stories they use, the order that they do their pitching, so people can understand and be better informed when they go to these events. But you've just summed it up. They aren't interested in your success. They're interested in getting money from you. And really, the least, if you know less, you're more likely to buy. So that's what they do. And that's why they don't tell you too much information. They give you little tidbits through the day. You might get 1 or 2 key things through a whole day. But ultimately, 80%, 90% of that day is just setting you up to sell, the big sell at the end. But they'll do test sells. They might do in the first half of the first day, they might offer you a small low price point product just to test if you'll buy. But it's all a process that they use. But you're too smart and you're too far along in that journey to buy, which is mad, which goes to show that it's a shady, and it's an unregulated industry as well. Property is one of the worst for this, by the way.
And it is, and that's how I first got introduced to yourself in terms of YouTube videos, and I thought it was great what you were doing, and I thought you were a little bit mad putting 500k into something and prepare to lose it, but I take my hat off to you for what you've done in terms of helping, exposing, and since probably you've started this, there's been a load more, and I noticed on one of your sponsors on your on YouTube channel is that Shaf. Is it Razul? He's obviously now doing his channels, and then one of the guys off his channel was on channel 4 or 5 last 2 weeks ago. That Joe Lycett show, he exposed that Samuel in terms of or tried to expose that Samuel. And then interesting, I've followed that story and I've followed the response from these people, and I find there is no shame.
No, do you know what's interesting as well? And it's a lot like my old business. In my old business, what we did was very different to what was out there in the industry. It was kind of new. So we took something that was already out there and then we tweaked it and we made it our own. We offered a genuine USP. That was kind of what made us stand out in the industry. The way we priced it was different. The actual product was slightly different. But that meant that we grew rapidly. And then weirdly, by the end of the 3 years, 2.5 years, when we actually sold the business and we bought out by a competitor, what we were doing had almost become industry standard. So many copycat companies sprung up because they saw our rapid growth. And weirdly, rightly or wrongly, I had no experience in YouTube. I had no experience in making YouTube content. But my channel's gone in just just over 12 months to 50,000 subscribers, which I was talking to a YouTube expert last week, actually. I was interviewing him for my channel. And he said, I've got a unicorn channel. Very few channels get to 50,000 within a year. In fact, only 15% of YouTube channels full stop get over 10,000 subscribers. If you get over 10,000 subscribers in the top 15%, and that's in the world. But 50,000 subscribers, which is unheard of. But my fourth video that I did on YouTube did almost 500,000 views. And that was just my fourth video. And it was, like, these were unheard of. But now, again, there's other people. And I don't see this as like it's copycat. I don't see it as, I'm glad I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing it more to educate people. I want to make money from my investments. I don't want to be the guru expert online. So I'm glad that other people are doing it. But yeah, even like some of the topics, it's as if like sometimes some people watch my videos and then go and make a version of their own and vice versa. But we're all talking about the same people. But yeah, Joe Lycett's an interesting person. I know someone, he takes a lot of his ideas that he sees online. And he used he used some content actually. And in the show, it was made out that that was a message that was given to him. Actually, he'd ripped that from another YouTuber's content, and I didn't like that. It's like, it's hard enough. It's like supporting local British business. Yeah, it is. It's hard enough when you're like an independent small content creator to be seen. So when someone on the mainstream media or that are on primetime TV use some of your content for their message, the least they could do, I think, is credit it to you. And I've had that myself. I had the BBC used some of my content from my YouTube channel and included it in their documentary that they did about this world. And they pretty much ripped a lot of the scripts of my work, but then equally used clips from it. And they didn't credit me properly. And it's annoying sometimes because you just think, I've grafted for that. And you've literally gone on YouTube and just ripped it in 30 seconds. Because they can, because they're bigger boys and they think they can. Yeah, and then equally as well, people then believe that it was their idea or it was their, and it's the same with social media now, isn't it? If you've got a bigger platform and you can shout the loudest and more followers, people think it was your idea or you were the originator, even if it wasn't. So it's an interesting world, social media. But this world in general, I've got a love-hate relationship with it, but yeah, there are a lot of people doing it now, and I think it's a good thing. The more people that are aware of this, the more people, the better. But what I think makes me unique, by the way, is I'm actually invested in their courses, so I'm not. This isn't just my opinion, and I think everything's a scam. I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm doing it. And this is my content is based on my genuine experience and fact. So if I stumble across one that works, I will just put the content out and say, this worked and this is what I did. I'm not here trying to say everything's a scam and everything. Whereas some of the channels, I think sometimes it's just, they're looking from the outside. They've not actually been and done the person's course. They've not given it a real good shot. They're just calling everything a scam and everything fake. I don't criticize them. I'm just saying that's kind of what makes me a bit different, I would say. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So what was your, pre all of this, what was your business, what you grew and sold? Ironically, it was an online training business. So I made content for like corporate businesses to train staff. So clients were typically an interesting one. Like, so the Football Association was one of our clients. So if it'd be like cybersecurity, data protection, safeguarding, that type of thing. So people like Macmillan, Ford, Topman, Topshop, like retailers. We had like Schneider Electrical. We had all these different businesses using our training materials as part of their wider company training platform. So what we did was, say me and you 3-4 years ago, if we wanted to learn something, we wouldn't go and sit down and do a 3-hour e-learning course just to work out how to, I don't know, record something on Sky Digital, or you wouldn't go to, or set your video player or whatever. You would go on YouTube and you would watch something in 30 seconds to say, how do you, whatever. But when we're in work would sit you down and say, hey, great news, it's your first week in work. Go into a 3-hour DSS course or do a cybersecurity course. And you would click next, 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 and it would be boring. And it was like, why do we learn in work so different to how we learn in real life? So all we did, me and my friends, said, why don't we change e-learning from what the industry has had for the last 10 years and then just turn it into a format that's easier to use? So it's like small, engaging, bite-sized material, animated explainer videos. This wasn't learn for 3 hours. It was like, here's a skill in 60 seconds, go and put it into practice. Where we were clever was most people in the industry have an expensive platform. So you'll all have done this type of training before. So you in work, you will have to do training at work. But most of our competitors had a platform, and the platform was a big investment for companies, 50 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand, whatever it might be. So everyone could go on, get certificates, could track who had done the training. That was made by geeks, for want of a better phrase. The content on it was usually bullshit. So all we did was we made the best content to go on these expensive platforms and then partnered with all these different businesses. So we were content creators for learning platforms. And so instead of competing with these people, because a lot of people stupidly built a platform, then built their own content and tried to sell it as an expensive package, we just built the content that could work on anyone's system. Good. So then we could sell direct to corporates, or we could sell direct to the actual platform providers. We ended up partnering 26 platform providers. We were in America, we were in Australia, we were in Europe, and the UK was our biggest market. Where we were different is most people charge per course, per head, and try and make it all that expensive. But we just thought it's content. Once we've made it, it's there anyway. It doesn't affect us whether you've got 1,000 staff and a new 20 people join. It's content. Whereas our other competitors were trying to tie you into a long contract and say, well, if you get 50 new staff, your new price is increased to greedy bastards, basically. So we went in there and said, you're being ripped off. E-learning shit, and we know because we make it. So why pretend that it's not? They're overcharging it. It's content at the end of the day. It doesn't cost us any more whether your business grows from 1,000 to 10,000. This is our price. It's cancel anytime, and we will upload new courses every week based on what was hot topic. So say something happened like the mobile phone laws changed on you get 6 points and a £200 fine. We would make that course in 3 days and just put it on our system for all of our companies to then download and then train their staff on it. So if you had fleet or taxi drivers or bus drivers, and they're getting free content, and we literally blew the market apart. So everyone was saying you won't be here in 3 months. So we were charging like 9 times less than other companies. So we were winning contracts at like say 5 or 10 grand a year, whereas their current provider for a worse product were trying to tie them into a 4-year contract worth 100 grand a year. So that was what happened. We deliberately targeted some of our competitors that were expensive, attacked their client base, and then they bought us out. Well, they had to buy us out, otherwise they would lose too much money. So that's what we did. And then we kind of, I would say it sounds a bit big-headed, but whatever, but we changed that sector in 2.5 years. We became like the benchmark for any new e-learning company. And now many of the old boys have started doing what we did.
And why sell? Why didn't you stay in and continue to grow and take over these boys? What made you get to the point where you go, right, now's the time to exit and move on?
Well, the real answer, there's a couple of answers there. Number one, I didn't want to be known as e-learning boy. I had no interest in the sector. I wasn't passionate about it. I really, it wasn't my background. I've always wanted to do my own thing. Number two, it stopped being fun. So it was fun when we were little and we didn't hardly had any staff. But when you grow to say 21, 22, 23 staff, you feel like you're babysitting for 60% of your time and not actually doing the thing that you want to do. So there's that reason. It was a 3-year plan. We'd actually planned it out to be 3 years and sell for £10 million. So it was whichever of them comes first. We didn't sell for 10 million, by the way. It was a little bit less, but it was decent. Well, it was 8 million we sold for. But the point is, like, if you could do 2.5 years of work and someone offers you a figure like that, but equally, we were competing with companies that had offices all over the world and had a workforce far bigger than us. And what we'd noticed is our product was only fresh, new, and unique for the first 2 years. Other people had started to copy what we were doing because we were losing too many clients for us. So they could have just replicated. If we could do it with we started with 4 people in 2.5 years, how long would it take them to do with multi-million pounds and 100 people on their workforce? So it was, in my mind, it was at its most valuable at the 2.5 year mark, because otherwise, even the person that bought us, they could have just they bought us for 8 million quid. They could have probably thrown 3 million at it themselves and overtook us in 6 months because they already had an established client base. So while we were an attractive option to certain people at that point because they were taking competitors out of the game. So if they bought us and then they owned our content. They had all the contact details of all their competitors' clients that used our products. So we made it an attractive proposition to buy, but equally, it was a combination of those three things.
Yeah.
It could have easily been overtaken by other people. It was at its most valuable. I didn't want to be known as the e-learning boy, and also I didn't really like suddenly going from it's us against the world, every sale feels like a victory, to being like talking about HR policies, and that's the actual
the actual reality of business. The boring stuff, the managing staff and dealing with all the headaches, isn't it, when you get bigger?
I like businesses. Weirdly, I like startup life better than established businesses. So I think I'm always a sort of a 3 to 5 year person. Once I get to like 3 to 5 years, I start thinking I want to do something else now, and I back myself as well. I think I've got a bigger one left in me. Yeah. Like I'm 35 now. I think I'll be done and dusted by 45. I'm doing what I'm doing now, like the iron production stuff and the entrepreneur stuff. This isn't what I think will be my big one. I've got in my head, I've got what my big one will be. I think my next 3 to 5 years will be building that and then cash out and done.
Yeah. You feel like you're not fulfilled yet. You've got something else left in the tank.
Yeah, but equally, and I know it's a strange one to say to people until they've been in this position. I was too young to finish, like even getting 2 million, 3 million, 4 million pounds in your bank account. There's a misconception that you set for life, especially if you're in your 30s. If you had £1 million in the bank today, like interest is down at like less than 0.5%.
Yeah.
So you're making like £5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Like, it's some even less. It's unreal. My numbers have been wrong there, but you're making like 50 grand. It's hardly what you imagine it to be. It's absolutely crazy. And people think, if I make £1 million, I can live off the interest, but you can't.
You can't. And also, I read an interesting article the other day that the majority of lottery winners, because they don't come from money, waste all the money and spend all the money. And
86% of lottery winners have got less money if you go and see them in 10 years' time. And that's because they've got absolutely no idea of how to handle money.
And and I think that's the education. Maybe it's not for business people, and maybe it's not for people who sell out, because you start to educate yourself as business moves on. The people I know in business now aren't the same people I knew 3, 4, 5 years ago. You start networking with different people. They tell you about investments. They tell you how to do different things with your money. Where if someone had landed 3 or 4 million quid on me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had a clue. I'd have been like them lottery winners and just splashing the cash.
Yeah, so all I've really done, I suppose, is through my YouTube channel, is I've done that learning just publicly. I'm letting you see what happens next, because there's lots of stuff out there. I can show you 1 million YouTube channels or books to read that tells you how to start a business, how to scale a business. Once it gets to how to sell a business, there's far fewer content and books out there. And then it's what do you do with your money after you've actually achieved your goal, and it's like, what next? I always look at, I went a bit mad, to be honest, after that happened. I don't mean mad as in like spending money, because I'm like the most boring millionaire you'll ever find. I still drove my 13-plate Ford Focus until about a year ago. I'm bearing in mind I sold the business in 2017. I moved into the house I was moving into anyway. I've not gone and got a bigger house. I'd already agreed to move into a house and then moved into that house. Like literally, like nothing is really different in terms of my actual day-to-day life. In fact, I earn less money now than I used to pay myself when I was actually working in the business full time. And again, this is like, sorry to wreck the illusion for some people, but that's like the reality of it. It's like I could have been a baller for 2 years and had a fantastic 2 years and then be broke, or I could have gone, do you know what? I'm going to invest this money and I'm going to make sure that it makes me 20 grand a year for the rest of my life. And then still work. So that's all I've done. I know it's boring. I know it's sad, but that is kind of how I look at money. But we don't get taught these things at school.
No.
We don't get taught these things at school. And that is kind of the main motivation for I'm making the content I wish was available to me when I was there. So I can see what I'm doing now pivoting a little bit. I hate to use that word because everyone's using it now, aren't they, through lockdown, but
Yeah.
I can see myself now going from, entrepreneur exposed and it's all a scam, to this worked for me, that worked for me, this worked for me, and then almost becoming like, hopefully, a place where people can trust, saying, well, Mike said that this works, I'm going to try that myself. Almost like not advising people, that's a bit too serious, but a bit more like, oh, well, I trust what Mike's review is of this course or that passive income scheme or that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, so
like
that's kind of how I see this going. Rather than just everything's shit and I don't believe anything, because I'm stumbling across things now that actually that did work. It doesn't quite work how that guru said, but my real experience is this, and here you can watch it for free on my YouTube channel.
So how long did it take you to get going again once you'd sold out? Did you take any time off, or did you already have a plan of what you were going to do next?
So I wanted to start working again after a week.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the devil makes, work for idle hands. That's me. And I have to distract myself. I'm like an obsessive person. If I'm into something or interested in something, I will like read loads on it, research loads on it. I become like obsessive with it. And it was my business for 3 years. As in, that was the one thing that kept me going. And this is what I was going to mention earlier. When Tyson Fury won these world titles, look what happened to Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
I kind of am cut from that type of cloth, really. And I probably had the worst 2 years of my life in terms of mentally how I felt. And that isn't because I was going nuts. It was just I had lost my sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clear objective. I didn't have a clear goal. It wasn't me against the world. I needed to fight for something. It was like everyone wants to talk about climbing Everest. No one ever talks about walking back down.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of, and that's where I found myself. So I literally, I already had a background in property investment. I had a couple of properties that I rented out. So I went and just did a bit more of that. But what I ended up doing was, so I ended up buying like 5 or 6 properties or whatever on top of what I already had. The way that I knew it, and then I was just looking at, so that kind of took up a little bit of my time. I started doing I became a parody business guru just to keep my mind ticking over. So I used to write really bad business advice under a fake name, and post it online as almost like a not very self-aware business guru. So I would say stuff like ageism is great for business. You should employ women because of the gender pay gap if you want to save on your bottom line and stuff like that. Like really shit business advice. More making a mockery of some of the aren't I amazing business leader for stating the obvious type content that you see all the time, but equally challenging some of the issues that I'd see on LinkedIn. So I did that just to keep my mind occupied. But weirdly, my followers started to grow quickly, and some of my content was getting read out on the radio and stuff like that. It's a weird kind of, I've been like lucky in a few different fields, really.
Yeah.
So it kind of, and then people wanted to interview me, but it was a joke. Like I wasn't a real person. It was a business guru that so I did that for a little while, and then that kind of grew, and then I did the YouTube channel, and that kind of grew. So I kind of just did this that started out as a joke, which has now turned into me having a content creation and marketing production company.
Yeah.
From a joke. I've kind of made this just because I wasn't doing anything else. This isn't my big one. I'll probably run this business without me soon. I'm probably about 6 months away from this being able to run and me not having anything to do with it anymore. And then I'll crack on with my other business. So I've accidentally now got a marketing and production company with staff, with an office that we're just about to knock through. We'll have a podcast studio and stuff like that. And we do video editing and all those types of things solely from me just asking someone to animate some of my fake business guru stories. That's how they started.
Great that. So is your next big thing under wraps? Is it a secret?
Yeah. But what's weird is the people that are involved in that only became aware of me through the entrepreneur stuff and my videos online. So one thing that it has worked out, while it's cost me a lot of money, it's opened doors to like sort of the opportunities it's afforded me, I suppose. You can't really put a figure on it in terms of monetary value.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that I thought could happen with this. While I might lose money short term, it's I will attract good people. Now, if you know you've got a great opportunity and cause, and you know I'm the guy that calls this bullshit out, you've got to be an absolute dick to come and approach me and say, I want you to work with me on this. And that's what's happened. I've had people want to come on my podcast, which is mad. I started it as a joke, like not another dicker with a podcast. Now people want to come on my podcast. The post
because it's exposure though as well. That's the thing. It's exposure. It's you're exposing these people, which again, these people will still sell to the masses, albeit they're being exposed. There is still a big customer base out there, and they always say in public.
Well, you'll know that there's some people there that ride the bad publicity. So probably some of the people that you were alluding to before. Doesn't matter how bad the publicity is. They know that their target market is going to believe them regardless. So it's like there is some truth to that. No publicity is bad publicity. And to be fair, some of the bad publicity, they can turn it around quite easily and quite well because it is opinion a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I do believe the podcast, I have many an argument with my wife because she always says, why do you do a podcast? You make no money off it. Why don't you just spend that time in your businesses and make money? I'm like, different. I say, because one, I like doing the podcast. I like hearing. I've learned so much off interviewing successful business people where they've given me some advice and I go, that's great advice. That, I had a guy on a number of months ago who owned Derby County Football Club, and he interestingly sold his business, had 20-30 million quid in the bank and tried to kill himself. Yeah, and that is great advice for people. And just like what you've said there about the depression and I've recently just read Tyson Fury's book, and I suffered depression a number of years ago whilst running a large business. And when everyone thinks you've got it all, you don't know what's going on in the mind. And I think that's great advice for people because everyone wants to build for the sale. But unless you find your purpose, which is the hardest thing in life to do and search for, then a lot of more people are going to fall into that gap. And maybe it's that person who tries to kill himself next time will succeed. So it's like giving this advice to people is massive out there because everyone hopes for the big sale and thinks, right, I've made it, where actually as entrepreneurs, I believe we take our thrill in the climb. You talk about climbing Everest. Everyone wants to get to the top, but actually realize if you're not taking your time when you get to base camp and looking around thinking I'm a base camp, you get to the next point and look at, if you're not taking success out of the journey, when you get to the top, it'll just be, it won't be.
The journey is a lot more enjoyable than the destination. And that's it's a horrible thing to say and it's a sad thing to admit. And it almost makes me think, oh, what's the point then? But it's like that's the truth and I'm only saying that's the truth from my own experience. I mean, there's probably numerous other people that would say differently, but you've hit the nail on the head there with one thing that you said, and it really resonates with me, especially. I couldn't speak to some of the people that I speak to now if I didn't have that podcast on my YouTube channel. Yeah. Because it almost has to be, you both have to see value in it. So I get people that, like, I couldn't speak to a dragon off Dragon's Den. I can just go and send a message to a dragon off Dragon's Den and say, can I speak to you for an hour and a half about things that I want to ask you and I think people will find interesting? Because they would say, well, no, I charge for that. Or no, I don't do that service. But when it's like, they think, well, I know you've got a network of, say, 75,000 people connected to me or follow me on LinkedIn. I might be able to sell some of my stuff to these people or get exposure, like you said. Like I wouldn't really be speaking like this to you unless you were a client of mine.
That's right.
But really, and vice versa. Like, we probably wouldn't speak to each other if it wasn't for having a podcast and stuff like that. No. So it's one of the things, and also the YouTube channel, where I think it does, not only does it build your brand and stuff like that, but again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to use it for that reason. This has to be a byproduct of why you're doing it, rather than the sole purpose of it. And equally trying to get a massive podcast. Like, I bet there's a million people out there now saying, Joe Rogan sold his podcast for 80 million quid to Spotify. I'm going to start a podcast. Newsflash, you ain't going to sell your podcast for 80 million quid. He'll be the only one that ever does that.
Yeah.
There'll be other podcast deals now, but it'll be like $1 million. It'll be $500,000. he's sort of done that now, and that's. But
Yeah,
you'll see now there'll be loads of these podcast courses.
You can do some podcast training courses on how to start a podcast, and
of course you can
find out how to monetize
I know
it.
one guy that does that.
Yeah, how to monetize it. And that's the thing. I didn't start the podcast to make money, and I will never make money off my podcast. I understand that. I did it for the exposure. I did it for. I love learning off people. I love talking to people. I love hearing interesting story. I'm very much like yourself. I love the startup field. I've got a number of interests in startup businesses that I help out in, and I love the startup field. So I also I get a lot of people come to me now, not for business advice, but how to start. Where I just give me time for free on these people. I just say, this, that, and the other. I had one guy come to me a couple of weeks ago. My background is education, where we do funded education, so apprenticeships. People back into work, in-work training, funded things. I had one guy come to me the other day and he's like, right, I'm going to start a training business. Can you give me some help? And I'm like, says, it's like minefield funded training. And I says, what do you want to do? What's your background? I say, and I just asked him a question. I went, I'm not being funny and don't take this the wrong way. I went, can you sell? And he went, well, I've never done sales. And I'm like, oh God, this lad's going to spend all of his money here trying to start a business and he's never even tried to sell. And I was like, look, don't go all in, don't quit your job. Try and sell something first. And that's the biggest mistake, but they get sucked into this life of, and buy all of these gurus as well. Come and start your business and grow and scale. And it's not that easy.
Well, there's two things I think there, right? Number one, being able to sell is one of the most important skills for you to be successful. And that's in your current job, regardless of whether you're in sales. I mean, sell yourself at performance reviews or pay reviews, sell yourself to your manager, promotions, stuff like that. You've got to be able to sell yourself. But selling a product's great. And I don't mean like features and benefits, that type of bullshit. I mean confidence, know how to control a conversation, stuff like that. So there's certain things that everyone needs for sales if you're going to be successful. If you're going to have your own business, 100%, regardless of what the business is, you will have to sell your business to investors, your first clients. You are the most important person in your business when it first starts. But my one tip for anyone that might be watching this that's thinking, I want to run my own business. Oh, I'd love it if I could sell a business for 8 million in 2.5 years. My one secret, and I won't charge you 1997 reduce, you won't need to rush to the back of the room to hear this, is I worked in startups for 6 years before I started my own business. I learned more in the first 12 months of working in a startup than you would learn getting one-to-one mentorship, basically being banged into a Facebook group and you're getting one-size-fits-all content from your favorite guru that sells mentorship. I got paid to learn about startup businesses because I worked in a startup, and they will do everything in their power for you to succeed because it's their business. Their livelihood depends on how well you understand that business and you can sell their products and you can fit into that startup life. So I worked for 2 startups, one from day one, pretty much. I was like, they've been open like maybe a month or whatever, and then I went in there and they had nothing, no sales process. No, I knew nothing about designing a sales process, running a sales team, marketing. But I tell you what, after 6 months, I'd probably been exposed to more in that business, sat in there listening to the directors talking, knowing about forecasting, marketing plans, strategy, product launches, than you would learn in any FTSE 100 company or big corporate in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I would say anybody that honestly thinks that they've got what it takes to start their own business, go and work in one of the thousands and thousands of startups in the UK. Now I hear, oh, but what if it fails? So many businesses fail. Good. That is the best learning you will get, because now you will know exactly how this could end and learn from some of their mistakes. So I've done that. So when people say you got rich quick, Mike, it was 2.5 years. No, it was 6 years worth of learning that went into that 2.5 years, and a well-executed plan in a sector that had the right market conditions with a product that was a real alternative and had a real USP. Now, if I could package all that into a course and guarantee you that end result, I would be a billionaire. But the reality is, I can't, because you are not me. You have not got the same products. The market conditions have changed. Even if I tried to replicate that journey myself again from today, I couldn't guarantee the results, because there's so many things outside of your control. And one key ingredient as well, luck was involved. And most of these mentors, gurus, and business people hate to admit it, but luck is an essential and key part of any success story, whether they acknowledge it or not. I think what you do in terms of effort and talent and the right market conditions, you can improve your ability to capitalize on the luck when it comes, but there still has to be, if you want that big sale or that big exit like I had, that element of luck where somebody in your industry is acquiring businesses at the right time, etc., etc. They value it at the businesses that you value it at. So that's my one tip. If you want to run your own business, you think you've got what it takes, you're not wasting 12 months by going and working in someone else's startup. You're actually, and don't pay for a mentor. Go and get your mentorship paid for in the environment that you want to work in.
Yeah, I'll back that as well, because there was 2 businesses I worked for before starting my own business, and one I was, say, the 5th member of staff in, and very small, they grew, multi-millions in the years I was there, in the 3 or 4 years, and I learned so much. And that's right, because you might be in there as one job, you will speak to the managing director every day. He will be sat there. You will be in meetings that's above your pay scale, if you like, because he wants everybody in their meetings, because your input in an SME is vital. The bigger you get, when I grew my business, we had 100 staff. I didn't know some of the names of the 100 people. I didn't enjoy the business. I didn't know the names. I didn't know. People would say morning to me in the corridor, and I go, "Who's that?" And they go, "Do you not know she works for you?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Like that gets less enjoyable when that happens. But in the startup, when everyone's there together, everyone's got an input. You learn as well that where the money comes from. If you don't do your job properly, it's not just a button like if you worked at Asda or you worked at Nissan and you get paid at the end of the month, regardless. That you've got to generate and contribute to get that money in to pay everybody as well as the MD's house. So I've heard you say that before on some of your things, and I think that's so valuable.
I had no concept when I was an employee as a salesperson. I was decent at sales, but I had no concept of how much I actually cost the business to be sat there. So I naively, like many people that might be listening to this or are in sales, think, "Oh, I just made 10 grand's worth of sales for this company this month." But when you take your basic out, your heating, your lighting, your national insurance, your pension contribution, how much the product costs to market, and all these different things, realistically, I might have only made 3 grand profit. So I'm not the big baller. I'm the big guy that goes and wins out of the business. When you actually boil it down to numbers, and so many people in sales. So I worked at a company that made that transparent. So everybody had a breakdown, and I'm talking about even Robinson's juice was on the list.
Yeah.
Like I cost £1.27 in Robinson's juice every month. We had every cost, and you didn't earn commission until you passed that point. So I was getting paid like a basic of 2 grand. So our boss used to say, "You can have any basic you want, but your target would move, and you would pick how much you got paid, but your costs would then be amplified. And if you didn't hit target, you were gone." And I did that in a startup. Now, you imagine so I knew exactly how much everybody in that business got paid. You now imagine doing that at, say, I don't know, BT or Royal Mail or whatever. They don't do it. But if you're in a business where there's only 5 of you and well, he earns 600 quid more a month than me. Why? Well, actually, he's negotiated this deal. He gets that commission based on he's backed himself. Or that guy's gone commission only. You learn so much more than just saying, when you work in a recruitment company, you don't like your boss because you've not been paid that £500 commission he promised you. Well, I can run my own business. There's a big difference between sat on the phones that someone else has paid for in an office that someone else is paying the rent for, ringing a database that someone else has built off the back of someone else's marketing, than there is when people are looking at you at the end of the month, like saying, "When are we getting paid? What are we getting paid? How much annual leave do I get?" Honestly, it's such, and that's why I try and discourage people from starting their own business in some ways, because it's like, I just want you to have a better understanding of what's involved. And I'm one of the ones that's made it, by the way. So I should be swinging and dancing from the stage saying, "Hey, you can all do it. And here's my course. Come on, I can tell you exactly how to do it." But I can't. I can tell you what not to do. And I can tell you, if you do these things, you'll have a better chance of being successful. But I can't guarantee any types of results for anybody. And it's not a linear learning curve either.
Yeah,
you'll know that. I've had some things that absolutely flopped and been shit.
Without a doubt. I mean, nobody wants to. I've started things where I just think, "What the hell are we doing here? What have I put this money in here for?" but we've also been in a fortunate position where we've been able to do that, where some people, when they're starting things, if that is their all, you know, I feel for these people because they are searching for that dream. And I was that person years ago. I always said I was going to start my own business, and people used to say, "What? Well, I don't know, but I'll start it." And then, funny enough, worked for a couple of startups, a couple of smaller businesses, and then I found my niche. I fell into my niche or what I was passionate about, and then grew it from there. But I was one of these people searching for something because I didn't have, you know, that fulfillment. So.
Yeah, it's the problem with society now as well. Like, there's two things that really I think contribute to this. It's number one, and I'm saying like young males because that's what I am. So I'm not saying this from a sexist point of view. I'm only talking from my own experience and whether people think it's politically correct. But there isn't a career path for young males anymore. It's not like you would join the army or you would join, you'd go and work down the mines or the pits, or you would go and work in the factory where, let's be honest, and that was up until the 80s and 90s even.
Yeah,
you would come from a town, you would work in, especially like if you're based in the northeast, there was loads of those places. So it was like 60% of the working men in that town would go and work for this company or that company. Big family business, and they employed everybody in the area. You would go home, you'd pay your mortgage off, you'd have your 3 kids, and your life was pretty much mapped out. Then that went to shit with the internet, basically.
Yeah, it did.
And now it's like, well, anyone can set up a business and stuff like that. And everything was like outsourced, and we could buy things from overseas now. So all local businesses left, and the factories died down, the pits stopped, and so on. So we want belonging. We want to have someone to tell us how to do it. That's been replaced now by people on social media, and this is the other point that I think is a lot to blame, telling you that working the 9 to 5 and working all these hours is the wrong way to doing things. This is the life you want. And you start thinking that every other 22, 23, 24-year-old lad does wear a Rolex, does drive a Lambo, is working from his laptop on the beach, because that is what becomes your reality, because you're searching for that. Now, with algorithms on social media, if you search how to make £1 million, all you're going to see from that point is other people making £1 million, other people making £1 million.
Yeah.
But really, they're making £1 million from selling you courses, not doing the actual thing. They're good marketing. So you are the content you consume. You become that, and that becomes your distorted reality. And you can take that even further. Look, on Instagram, that isn't what their life is like for 90% of the time. That's one photo that they've carefully selected, and then they've photoshopped it to make it look better. So you've got this deluded idea of what real life is, and no sense of belonging, where you think, well, actually, this life isn't that bad if I know that I can pay my house off, I can have kids, everything's paid for, go on a nice holiday and stuff like that. So we've got those two things that I think are happening at the same time. And let's be honest, the last 3 years, 4 years, especially in the UK, has been pretty shit. Not only have we had what's going on at the moment, you know, with like the COVID-19, the pandemic and stuff like that, we've had the high street slowly been dying. We've all been seeing that happen for the last sort of 5-10 years. We had Brexit. It's tribal. Society's tribal at the moment. And they kind of capitalize on that by saying it's us or them. You're not like them. You can be like this. And I think that's what the problem is at the moment. Social media, not having any sense of belonging and job opportunities.
You're right, because there's
by these gurus.
There's not enough reality out there, because, you know, we're based in Sunderland. This office here right now is in Sunderland. The high street in Sunderland is charity shops. We've got a massive Primark. I think it's the biggest building in Sunderland. And you know, there was a guy who's been a restaurateur in Sunderland for years. He's very well known in the local business community. Was talking to my business partner a couple of weeks ago, and he might be having to go and get a job for the first time since starting his first ever restaurant 11 years ago. And he's owned a number of different things across the city because he's not making the money.
Yeah.
But that reality there is not on Instagram. Nobody's doing an Instagram story of saying how shit their life is or how shit business is. And you don't, you know, I've spoke openly on my podcast and other ones I've done of how the lows can hit you in business, because that is the reality. It's not all about, I very rarely celebrated the highs. It was always the tough. And when a high comes along, somebody punches you. You know what I mean? When you're on a high, there's somebody waiting there to kick you down. There's always something in some business waiting
What's
round the
good
corner.
about that, I think, is if you don't celebrate the highs and don't rub it in people's faces and that, then you can be more open about the lows. You kind of make a prison for yourself on social media, and a lot of these people, and that's why suicide rates are so high in like sort of men under the age of 35.
Yeah.
If you can't afford that lifestyle, but you're posting that online, when you go out and friends see you, you almost have to now live up to this reputation that you can't afford to do. You're putting yourself under pressure. So if you take cocaine and you're paying for everything on a credit card and it's all for the Instagram, then honestly, your chances of committing suicide are massively increased. But it's all that is your own fault, but I don't mean your own fault, it's society's fault.
Yeah.
The reality is, I drove a Ford Focus. I had £2 million in the bank and I had a 13-plate Ford Focus I was driving around. And my friends used to think it was mental and used to say, why don't you buy yourself a nice car? And I went, for what?
Yeah.
And they'd say, well, just have a nice car. I said, I used to drive to the office to go to work. I don't have an office to drive to anymore. So why do I want why do I want to buy a Lamborghini for 200 grand or 150 grand to say I've got a Lamborghini? It made no sense to me. But number one, that's what society, as in working class people, expect you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's wealthy. He's got a Lambo, but a Lambo isn't what wealthy people really buy. I mean, the top wealthy people. Or if they do, they can afford to buy 100 of them if they wanted to. This is pocket money to them. This isn't, I've just got enough money to buy a Lambo. And they couldn't get their head around it. It was almost like, I don't do this for other people.
The trouble is where
a lot of people do this for other people.
Where we live in similar probably backgrounds is, if you do well and you go and buy a Lambo, people will hate you for it. If you do well and you don't go and buy a Lambo, people don't understand that and they'll hate you for it as well. He's got all that money and he's tight as out, or he's got all that money and he's floating it. You're damned if you do.
Yeah, well, I do this. If I go out with my mates, so I used to go to Ibiza. We're not going this year, but we used to go to Ibiza like every year, and we'd go for like 3-4 days because I worked in Ibiza when I was younger, and I met some friends and we've stayed friends ever since. And when weirdly, it's so mad this. So my best mate, he's actually my financial advisor, and he's like a wealth manager, and he invests my money for free. I didn't pay a setup fee because he said, I can't believe that I'm actually doing this for one of my mates. It blew his mind. He was like so happy that one of his mates could actually afford to use him to do it. He was like, I'm not going to charge you a setup fee. Don't worry, Mike, blah, blah, blah. So obviously I use him. But as a thank you, I was like, well, I'll pay for Ibiza, blah, blah, blah. We'll go over and all that kind of stuff. Now, half of my mates, if I didn't offer, would say, he's a tight bastard him. Like, why isn't he offering? He's got all that money, blah, blah, blah. As if it's like they're right that I should pay for them, number one. But then I've got another half of my mates that would say, if I did, oh, flash bastard, he thinks he can pay for us. Like, it's like money's not object. You can't fucking win. And again, this is more what I was trying to get at with some of my content. It's weird who is actually genuinely happy for you, and you'll be surprised at the ones that aren't. I'm not friends with a lot of my friends, and don't get me wrong, they would argue because I've changed.
Yeah.
No, the way you think about me has changed.
Yeah.
I had one guy there, a good friend of mine, and he was always seen as the one that had done well out of our group of friends. He was the first one that would like to stop being friends with us. Like, and then he would nitpick at everything. He would say, oh, I bet you've been walloped on the tax there, but you've done this. Honestly, it used to eat him up. If he had gone and grown his business, I'd have been made up for him. Like, I've not taken his money. If I make £1 million or £2 million, it's not out of his pocket. There's money's abundant in the world. I have not taken his money.
Me and my wife talk about this all the time, because where we live in our village was the most deprived. Sunderland fan.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, good. Did you like the documentary? I just wanted to ask you about this because
I loved it. I loved the insight into the football club, which I've loved. I've been a season ticket holder. Me and my mum went since I was 8, and I've had a season ticket ever since. I still go with my friends, and I used to go with my friend's dad, and he passed last year, and we all sit in the same place, in the same corner, and the club is just, it's not where it,
but it's interesting though to see how closely it is linked to the community. It's almost like if that club does, and this is from an outside looking in, I'm an Everton fan myself, but looking in, I found it interesting. Number one, because you had so many ex-Everton players that like went there, a lot of them were past their best, but I've never really seen a community like that relies so much, and this isn't a criticism. If that team wins on a Saturday, the whole town seems happy. The businesses do well. Everyone goes out celebrating into the pubs or whatever. It's almost like that club has to do well for Sunderland, as in the town to thrive.
A local restaurant just over the road from the Stadium of Light does a Saturday special, a match day special. So he's had 48,000 people in the Premier League. And chances are, not obviously 48,000 people's eating at his restaurant, but he's doing a good Saturday. He's doing a brilliant Saturday. Now he's got 25,000 people going. That has a massive effect. And when Sunderland win, when I watch, and both of my kids now play football, when my kids win on a Saturday, it makes me feel better because I've always had that installed. We have had nothing in the Northeast. When they shut the pits, the industry's not like it was. People had an outlet on a Saturday at Sunderland Football Club, and it's such a ingrained thing. And I think it's very similar to Liverpool and Everton. We share a very similar thing. We've always connected well with Everton. I know Everton did well when we had little Bradley Lowry who was poorly and the connection there. So very similar cities and very similar upbringings, but we're so passionate about our football, and especially them scruffy gets up the road as well. They're exactly the same. So it's that's what we live for, and that has come across. We were in a bar in Iceland a couple of years ago, and the guy went, "Hey, where are you from?" And I says, this was when the first series in Sunderland Saturday came out. He went, "Where are you from?" I says, "Oh, little place in the northeast." I says, "Next to Sunderland." Sunderland, he says, "I love Sunderland." He says, "I'd never heard of you." He says, "And now it's on Netflix." So Sunderland as a football club are very much underperforming, but as an exposure, if we were in the Premier League and on Netflix, well, that there is just the biggest brand and you can never look for. But we're just not where we need to be.
You know what's mad about it? And I'll link it to the business now. It's mad watching, but maybe you're watching it because you kind of know how it ends. But some of the decisions that they were making, especially in the Series 1, it's like, and even Series 2, when the new guys came in, sometimes you think it's like a game to them. I know football is a game, but it's like some of these decisions, it was like ego-driven.
But it's like
basic business principles. You're thinking, fucking hell, and these are meant to be successful business people.
It's like the thing is with Sunderland, it's like I watched Series 2 on Netflix and I almost hoped it ended differently. Do you know what I mean? It's like I almost hoped it ended differently because I don't mind saying I went to Wembley, 34-year-old, and cried when we didn't go up in the playoffs because I remember being there in 1997, was it, against Charlton as a boy with me mum and dad, crying when we didn't go up. And I looked at my kids, I was so happy, and I said, people watch Sunderland and they take the mick and they go, "Oh, you're not very good," blah. But I was able to take my two sons to Wembley twice last year, no matter where we are, what we've done. And I remember talking to a guy in London, he went, "Do you know what?" He says, "You've done something most men will never, ever be able to give their children, to take them to Wembley to watch their team play football." And I thought, he's right, and what 2 weekends it was. And it's just a shame that these people at the top play it like a game. And we've got probably owners who care a little bit more than most top football clubs, who treat it as a money thing and a game, and they're not bothered. You look up the road, and albeit he's invested money, Mike Ashley, but some of the things he's done and some of the way he's treated the people, and obviously the publicity he gets in his own business as well. So it's just, it means more to us than it ever will to an owner. But the days of locally owned football clubs are gone. Nobody from Liverpool ever going to rock up with billions of pounds and buy Liverpool or Everton or Man United.
It's mad though, isn't it? Like Bill Kenwright gets slated by some Everton fans, but it's like he is probably the last of a dying breed. Like, did you have Ellis Short at your place?
Yeah, we had Ellis Short.
But it's like these that you won't get them. Doug Ellis at Aston Villa, like people hate him. It's like, oh, they're holding the club back. But it's like, but you'll be the first lot to criticise. And on that Everton, when it's now owned by a Middle Eastern consortium, and that's the same with local business and saying about people looking for something.
Ellis Short
want it. Go on, sorry.
Ellis Short, I'm in two minds about, because Ellis Short was a billionaire when he bought Sunderland, and he lost his billionaire status in buying Sunderland because he lost 400 million quid in the deal in terms of selling it and debt yet to pay off. He's a very intelligent businessman, and he's became a billionaire. And he bought a business, take football out of it, he bought a business, and he kept on continually putting the top people in charge being the wrong people, which made the club get worse and worse and worse. And we had, footballers going on strike. We had footballers sent to bloody prison. We had anything and everything that could go on at that football club has gone on. And no wonder they made a documentary out of it. But he continuously, he always backed the club financially, where some fans go, we need that, Everton for years, we need him to put his hand in his pocket, we need to spend money, yes, you do. He did spend money, and look where we ended up. So spending money is still not the end to all problems in football. You've got to spend the money right and have the right people.
We know that in the sense that we actually overperformed with, obviously Moyes didn't do the best with you guys, but with Moyes, that was his team, and he was told, you have got 5 million to spend. That was it each season. Yeah. And we wheeled and dealed, and we were probably I'm blue tinted glasses here, but if we had Lukaku up front for us, like the season before in Moyes' last season, we could have done something like a similar thing. I've been to Wembley and watched Everton in cup finals or cup semi-finals and stuff like that. I've seen us finish 4th. I've seen us finish 5th, like 3 years in a row. And they had something different. Then as soon as we got Farhad Mashiri and we were giving money to the wrong people. We went out and bought 3 number 10s. It's like you've gone and bought, imagine that in a normal business. You wouldn't go and hire 3 finance directors.
No, you wouldn't.
Go and get one that's the best one. And then you go and hire the rest of the team. But we've just gone, we'll have him. It's like, it's putting the 3, 4, 5 best players together isn't going to work. You need something else to be successful if you want to talk about the business of football. But we're the same. It's as soon as we got money, we've probably gone backwards, I would say, over the last 3-4 years, rather than going forwards. When we thought, this is it, we can now catch up with the top 4. It's mad.
And I always say that when people say we need, the guys who are there now are getting stick because they don't have enough money to feed the animal of football. They're saying they need more investment. They don't have enough money, but they have a little bit of passion and a little bit of understanding of what the Northeast, certainly Stuart Donald, of what the Northeast people are about, of how he was blown away because he comes up here and he's like a celebrity, and he never expected that as a football club owner coming from, Oxford way. So it's like, they've got the right mindset, they haven't got the money, or we get the money and they haven't got the right mindset. There seems to be no real...
It's like hiring. You'll know that when you hire people in your own company. Like we've got now, and it's so hard, especially in a startup, you've got to get it right. Almost every hire is a big decision. You've got to get it right. And they can hide in corporate companies where there's 100, 200 staff. You get those middle managers that don't kind of do anything, but they just play the game. But, you need stars. You need people that...
You do, and I think football needs an overhaul. And football, do you know what? Marcus Rashford this week has made me realise not all footballers are the same. And some footballers are using their exposure. And he's got 8, 9, 10 million people following on Instagram, and he's at one of the biggest clubs in the world. So, but footballers, when I watch Sunderland Till I Die, they did themselves no favours. These are so privileged to be where they are. And don't get me wrong, you're the elite. You talked about luck in business. You need luck in football as well. We've all had that footballer at school where he was the best footballer, but somebody who wasn't the best went on to make it. How did that happen? Well, it was just luck, really, wasn't it? It was there and then at the time. But they're in such a privileged position, yet they don't do anything to help them. I think footballers, as well as the training, should have a duty of care to the local communities they serve as well. Yeah. Give something back, do something, do some good.
Everton do a lot in the community and stuff. They win quite a bit for that. But I know what you mean. Even in the Everton squad, I actually weirdly, one of my friends' dads is a coach there, and it's surprising who does things behind the scenes for charities and donations and stuff like that. Sometimes it's not the ones that you think either. Not the ones that are like media friendly and get wheeled out. That a good example is Craig Bellamy does an awful lot. Charities and stuff like that. He gets pillared in the press at the time. Well, you'll know that from up there. Like, Shearer's legs had gone, but But yeah, but he does so much, but he just doesn't make a big song and dance about it and stuff like that. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's mad, isn't it? It's a strange world.
It is. I've just got a couple more questions. Just interesting.
Sure.
Do you get trolled a lot?
50-50. Normally bum chin. My weight is a weird one. Like grown men commenting on my weight. It's such. But then I also think it's a mad mindset to have. You've come on my channel to watch my content. Like I'd never heard you before. I don't know you exist. And you want to talk about stuff like that and my weight. It's kind of like, well, are you going to be successful? You don't see Warren Buffett trolling people online saying, "Oh, you put some weight on," or "You've got a bum chin." So it's kind of like you don't have to worry about those people. The worst one I've had is a death threat. Someone posted my address online, which is mad because I'm not selling you a product. I'm not. But what it is, again, the internet thing. People are tribal. You might love Grant Cardone and think he's the best person in the world. I guarantee you've not actually gained returns from Grant Cardone because in 2 years of asking, I've not met an investor that's actually made any returns back. So you're a fan that's never bought his product. I'm someone that's bought his product and not made any money. Why are you giving me shit? I didn't deliberately not make any money for myself. That would be a stupid business. But so like, I don't worry about those people. But yeah, I've had death threats from Grant Cardone fans is the worst one. So
what about the other side? Any women throwing themselves at you?
No. On the same point with this, super fans are just as scary / dangerous, annoying as people that absolutely hate you. It's like, and this is kind of my whole thing. Successful people are able to take points from both sides. You don't pick a side and solely believe one and argue the other constantly. And this is what makes my work quite hard sometimes. Even the worst entrepreneur will drop one or two genuine great business advice every now and then.
Yeah.
You've got to have the critical thinking ability and the level of intelligence and be savvy enough to take the bits from even the people you don't like as a general rule, but take the good advice and apply it to your business. So Gary Vee, I don't think he's a bad guy, but he talks an awful lot of shit. So I believe some of the stuff Gary Vee says.
Yeah.
Some of the property people that you've alluded to before talk 90% shit, but there's 3 or 4% of things that they do and say that you can learn from. I don't hate everybody that's a entrepreneur. I don't like everybody that's not. It's like I kind of take.
Well, Gary Vee told everyone to get on TikTok. I went on TikTok and I just felt weird at 35-year-old being on TikTok, thinking this is not the place. I feel like that about
YouTube, to be honest.
This is not the place for me, for my business, for business pay. Maybe I just haven't looked into it. You know, I see all these young kids on it. I just think, no, this is.
He's clever though. He's positioning himself now as the Richard Branson or like who we would have looked up to traditionally. So these 14, 15, 16-year-olds now, in 2030, they're going to be the 22, 23, 24-year-olds that have got their own startup businesses, but they worship Gary Vee. So who are they going to go to for advice, joint ventures? It's clever. He's basically becoming Dragon's Den, where people are paying to pitch to him. I know, I've been in his office. So it's a strange one. So I think a lot of people are nervous of speaking to me because they think I am that exposed character all the time, but that's just amplified for the content. I'm a real business person every day. I think
if anyone sees your name pop up as commented on their post, I bet you the first thing is to shit themselves.
Yeah, and I get that a lot. Like I sent a message to someone yesterday, a genuine question, and they were like, "Oh, are you going to try and expose me?" I was just asking a genuine question because I was interested in. And it's like fucking. It's kind of it's while it's opened some doors, it's closed some. But I'd say how I deal with them is both the same. And maybe this sounds fine. If you're a super fan, it's weird. If you absolutely hate me, it's also weird. While you're both opposite ends of the same spectrum, they're almost joined in terms of it's like a circle rather than So it's like I like people that like some of my stuff and don't then say they hate me if I say one thing that they don't agree with, which I get a lot of, by the way. I was your biggest fan until you said I said a joke about a foster child. This was months ago, and the amount of shit I got. So I basically said my business, because everyone goes, "Oh, your business is your baby." That's like a saying, isn't it? The business is your baby.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, no, not really. I always knew I was going to get rid of my child. My business was like a foster child. It didn't belong to me.
Yeah.
And then I got like the Foster Child Alliance or whatever, all giving me loads and loads of shit saying, and I was like, you get that that's a metaphor for my business? And they were like, yeah, no, we get it. And I was like, so why are we having this conversation? If you get that I'm not talking about a physical child. And I got loads of shit. I was your biggest fan until that one comment. And I just said, well, you're obviously not my fan then. You obviously don't get what I'm saying. So that's that. To answer your question, it was a quick fire one. But yeah, so yes and no.
Who do you look up to? Do you have any people you consume content for, or?
I know this sounds really, really conceited now, but I don't watch anybody's podcasts. I don't listen to anyone's podcast. I read books or listen to audio books if I need to do that. The only time I watch someone's podcast is if there's someone that interests me.
Yeah.
And I want them, I think like I would love to ask them a few questions. I'll go and watch maybe 2 or 3 podcasts that they've been on. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, I wouldn't watch Joe Rogan's podcast, but if someone I was interested that went on Joe Rogan's podcast, I would watch that episode. Does that make sense? So I don't go to one source for all my information. I go and get information from multiple sources, make my own mind up, and then.
Yeah, great. What's your favourite book then, if you read books?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favourite one, but the one that has made the biggest impact on my life is a book by Richard Templer called The Rules of Wealth, which is, it's a yellow book. I've had it since I've had it like maybe 11, 12 years. Weirdly, I was reading that book. I read it every year, but it's 100 rules in the version I've got. It's like 117 now. But of Rules of Wealth, understanding money and what to do to sort of grow to be wealthy.
Great.
So real basic stuff. And you kind of read it to the point you're at. So you might only read it to like point 13, and then it might not make sense to you for another 6 months or a year, but then it might go up to 17. And I was reading the last sort of 5, 6 rules when I was selling my business, which is what to do once you finally get a lump sum of money. And I would say, some people say it's basic, but everyone should buy that book and read it, because as soon as you start understanding that and implementing things, it's the big one. You can read as many books as you want, take pictures of them, put them on social media to show people you're reading it. No, this is one book that I've implemented pretty much through the last 10 years of my life. And I'm not saying it's because of the book I was successful, but I had the sort of foundation to understand certain things based on principles that I learned in the book, and then went and researched and implemented it further. So that is the one book I would say.
And last question, if you could have any 3 guests at your dinner party, alive or dead, who would you choose and why?
So I would pick a guy called Martin Machin, who passed away like 6-7 weeks ago. He didn't realize it, but he was my mentor in business. He was the first person whose startup I worked in. And when I left to go and work in another startup, he told me he thought it was a risk. He said he would leave a job open for me. If I ever wanted to come back, I could come back and work for him. And even though I left his business, we stayed in contact with him, and I would take him out every 6 months to 9 months just for a meal, just to sample my own ideas. And he didn't charge me or ask me to pay him anything at all. And he gave me more business advice than he'll ever know. But I never said to him, you are my mentor. But I learned so much from him. So he would be one. He's not famous. No one else will know him apart from anyone that knows me. Leon Osman. He is my favourite football player of all time. Weirdly, I've got a signed shirt from him now. And final one. Oh, I never know. I got the piss taken at me last time because I said Tupac, the rapper.
Yeah.
And he's quite apt around this time at the moment as well, like Black Lives Matter. He was, born to a Panther. He was born in prison, and his mum was big on the sort of civil rights movement and stuff. So him as well. So a bit of a strange mixture, I suppose.
Tupac, Leon Osman, and your business mentor.
Machin,
yeah. Great. Well, thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate that. It's been a good discussion. We talked about Sunderland today, so it's one of the first podcasts I've done where we've managed to talk about Sunderland, so that's a first.
I want to apologise to the people of Sunderland for Jack Rodwell.
Oh, please. I
Swear word, isn't
mean,
it, on there?
oh, that man. Well, I don't think he'll ever be allowed back in the city. He is a
No.
massive swear word. He is.
But it's an interesting thing, though. I get like, what's weird is imagine and take your loyalties out of this. Imagine if a business had offered you, and this is any business, BT, whatever, had offered you a set amount of money for 5 years, and then they were asking you to walk away from it.
Yeah.
What would you do if it was a real business and there was no emotion? I get it.
He's another interesting one. What if you were going to go and buy a product, and you Googled that product, and everywhere you looked was horrendous reviews? Would you then go and buy that product? Because essentially, when he left Sunderland, that's what clubs were doing. You only had to Google his name, and every single forum in the Northeast would have absolutely slated him because he just didn't want to play football. He didn't, and that was the sad thing. And maybe he didn't want to play football. That was just he was another sad thing in a catalyst of errors. I mean, we had footballers, Premier League winners, crashing cars drunk on a Saturday morning. Do you know what I mean? It was like, we've had it all at Sunderland. I don't think there's another football club who can come close, really.
No, it's mad as well that it's weird that it made amazing telly. It's as if they knew, like, you couldn't have wrote a script like that, if that makes sense. If you had to make a story, I mean, Dream Team on Sky TV or whatever it might be, if you had to make a story, you'd be like, oh, that's a bit unrealistic, and that's a bit, but it was like, that was real life.
I remember, funny enough,
so bad, like a comedy.
You've just mentioned Dream Team. There was an actress came up on my newsfeed the other day, and I went, oh, she was on Dream Team there. And I think since then I don't watch any of the soaps. She must have been in one of the soaps. She was the chairman or I can't remember now. And I said, oh, did you watch Dream Team? Never heard of it. I'm thinking, am I the only person who's ever watched Dream Team? Because everyone I talked to. It was Hartford United, or was it? I can't remember what it's called. They played in purple, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was great.
It was mad. Like, you couldn't have wrote that, but thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.